Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised. Charting Toward Intimacy covers mature topics. Listener discretion is advised.
We are not being a pro-life community if we are calling the potential for conceiving unsafe. Mm-hmm. We are not a pro-life community if we put the idea that we're breaking the rules, we are doing something wrong, if we are opening up the possibility to conceive.
Hey there, welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy, where we're expanding the natural family planning conversation. I'm your host, Ellen Holloway. All right, we are back. Kathleen is here. We're here for another NFP in Real Life episode. And today we are going to be talking about acronyms and also just some of the phrases that we use when we're talking about NFP. These are acronyms that either they have come from the methods themselves. These are some acronyms that have kind of like naturally come out of, like the NFP Facebook groups and things like that. And then some of the acronyms I think we're getting from like other places that have like trickled into NFP.
Or some of them maybe we're just entirely making up.
Maybe. I mean, some of these acronyms we hadn't really heard of, but we were like, oh, well, I guess we should talk about that one.
Yeah, we found a bunch of them that we were just like, that one's interesting. And they give you a good laugh, some of them. So
yes.
We'll probably end with those good ones.
Yeah. So we're going to split this into two parts. First, we're going to go through and we're going to define some of the, most prominent acronyms that we see. I think a lot of times we'll see like a post in an NFP Facebook group or something and be like, can someone please explain what all of these, what is CM and what is BBT? What are all these acronyms? What are these letters? So we're going to define them. We're just going to go through and define them. And then the second part is we're going to talk about some of the acronyms and some of the phrases that we use that really we should stop using.
That should not exist.
And there's valid reason behind it. We're not just going to complain about them. But anyway, okay, so let's start. We've got this list. This is in like no particular order, everyone.
Yeah.
Although I'm looking at it, it's sort of alphabetical, but not really.
Yeah, I was actually in the very beginning, they're kind of alphabetical. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we added more and they're not alphabetical anymore. So, all right. So the first one, BBT. This is basal body temperature or basal body thermometer.
True. Could be either one.
It could be either one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Typically it's going to be basal body temperature. That's going to be something that a symptothermal or some symptohormonal methods are going to use. It's waking temperature. That's what BBT stands for.
Yeah.
BIP.
Basic infertile pattern.
So this is something that is common in like methods that use mucus as a primary sign.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really common one in Billings, in the Billings ovulation method.
Yes.
This is like their bread and butter, is finding your basic infertile pattern and then going off of it. But other methods also still use BIP. Like I know SymptoPro uses BIP. If your basic infertile pattern doesn't match like the normal one,
exactly,
then you would find your own BIP. Is that the same for Femme? Okay.
Same for Femme. Yep.
Yeah. So that's what BIP stands for. It's basically like finding like what means infertile for your body. Like maybe you have continuous mucus, but there is a pattern of infertility and fertility within that continuous mucus. So that's what you're looking for.
It's not textbook, but it's
exactly.
Yeah.
BF, EBF. That's breastfeeding and exclusive breastfeeding. Although this one always throws me off because BF, I think of boyfriend. And so like when I see BF like in these groups and stuff, I'm always like, don't you have a husband? Like,
yeah. I'm
like, oh, you're talking about breastfeeding.
Yes.
So that's just that's just a funny thing for me.
Yeah. And then EBF with exclusively breastfeeding, that means basically you are not supplementing with any formula. And you really aren't even giving pacifiers, I think, to really be considered exclusively breastfeeding.
Yeah.
You're not giving pacifiers. You're allowing the baby to nurse on you, even for purposes of comfort. And the reason they use that a lot is because usually they're talking about another acronym, LAM, which is lactation amenorrhea method, right? Isn't that?
Yeah.
That's what it stands for?
Amenorrhea. Yeah.
Amenorrhea method. Which is, basically a way of sort of trying to postpone ovulation as long as you possibly can post birth.
Yeah.
Just through, because what breastfeeding does, for those who don't know, if you don't know, is it actually suppresses ovulation. So, but you can only use that as a reliable method of sort of fertility awareness if you are exclusively breastfeeding.
Right.
And there are a ton of rules to
and there's really specific rules, and different methods have different definitions of exclusively breastfeeding.
Yeah.
And they have different amounts of time that exclusively breastfeeding works for. Like, for example, Symptopro is 12 weeks. Creighton is 56 days, I believe, which I think that's 8 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Something like that.
So, and again, they're going to have different definitions of it too. Right. But typically when you're looking at somebody saying I'm exclusively breastfeeding, it's going to be in the first 6 months.
Yes.
And that's what LAM, lactation amenorrhea method, works for, is for the first 6 months. Like, LAM is not a method past 6
months. Long-term method. Yeah.
Ecological breastfeeding, though, which is the same EBF. Yeah. Ecological breastfeeding. See, this is why we're doing this definition episode, because it's kind of crazy.
That's right.
Ecological breastfeeding is actually more what you explained LAM is, because LAM is actually a specific method, and it's used within the first 6 months. And there are specific rules with LAM. It's like no more than 7 hours between breastfeeding. Yes. And like, there are very specific rules, and it actually technically is a method. Now don't at us about how LAM doesn't work. Like, there are very specific rules for LAM. And if you are not fulfilling every single one of them,
exactly,
you cannot rely on LAM.
No.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Total aside, but
that's a little aside. Don't at us that.
Don't at us.
That doesn't work. Ecological breastfeeding is basically your end goal is to delay ovulation as long as possible.
Yeah.
And up to 2 years, basically, because that's the natural baby spacing. Quote, I'm putting these in quotes, guys.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, ecological breastfeeding is past the 6 months. And I don't know. I don't really understand ecological breastfeeding. I'm not really sure that it works all that well.
Maybe we should give it a shot. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I'm
just for an experiment.
I'm 7 months postpartum and I still haven't got my cycle back. And last baby, I got it back at 5. So I am
oh my God,
I am treading in uncharted waters here.
Territory. Yeah.
I don't know.
That's interesting.
But also, my baby does not want to sleep. And so I probably am still doing ecological breastfeeding, because
that's true. You're just
he's waking every 3 hours still.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Anyway, this is not what this episode is about. Let's move to the
We're
next
on
one.
a total tangent here.
CD.
CD stands for cycle day.
Not compact disc.
Not which aren't really a thing anymore.
Not really a thing anymore.
Totally not relevant.
Cycle day.
Cycle day.
So when people say CD, I ovulated on CD 14, which, by the way, you wouldn't technically know that unless you got an ultrasound on cycle day 13, 14, and 15 to know that you did in fact ovulate on day 14. When people say I ovulated on CD 14, they mean that they had a positive LH test. I'm sorry. This is
passionate.
This is my opportunity to
things about
call out all these things. You can't know the day you ovulated. You can know the day that you peaked, peak mucus, and you can know the day that you peaked on like an LH test. Which I guess maybe we should just jump to the definition of LH.
Yeah,
luteinizing hormone.
Luteinizing hormone.
Luteinizing hormone is the hormone that's going to spike within about 2 to 3 days of ovulation. So ovulation can happen a day before the LH spike. It can happen within about 3 days after. My numbers might not quite be right there, but the LH spike is
usually it's about 24 to 36 hours prior to ovulation, but it can be.
What it is. Okay. It can be after, though.
But it can be like, yeah, exactly.
So it's like 2 to 3 days.
Yeah. And while we're doing LH, we might as well also mention FSH.
Yes.
Which is the follicle stimulating hormone, which is the very first pituitary hormone that launches your cycle. Post period.
Yeah.
It kind of launches the whole beautiful symphony that is the ovulation cycle, if you will.
If you're seeing PG, or I think it's PTG, that's progesterone. That's what people are talking about, progesterone. Yep. Progesterone. Goodness gracious, I can't even say it. And that's what's going to spike after ovulation happens. That's going to be like your confirmation that ovulation has occurred. That's what like a prove test is going to test for. So if you're seeing somebody saying, oh, like got a positive PG, like that means like I've ovulated. And
although it can also stand for pregnancy, can it? Or pregnant, can it? Can't it? PG on some of the forums, I think PG can sometimes stand for pregnant too.
See, and this is why these acronyms are confusing people.
I know, they're so confused, and it's because we're making them up as we go. You know, it's like a lot of these aren't textbook. I mean, a lot of them are method specific, as we've said, and a lot of them people are just making up, and it's like, well, okay, they're just lazy at typing, I guess.
Yeah. So let's, since we're kind of on like ovulation, let's talk about DPO, days past ovulation. And again, this is really more like days past peak, whatever peak day their method is assuming, because peak day is most closely associated with ovulation.
Right.
But if somebody is saying, you know, I'm 4 days DPO, they're saying I'm 4 days past ovulation. And you know, they're asking some question about that.
Yes.
And then kind of in the exact same line of that is you'll see P plus and a number. So that means peak plus, you know, P plus 3 would be like peak plus 3. I'm 3 days past peak. So I had peak day and then I have 1, 2, 3 days. And there are certain methods, particularly mucus only methods, and like FEM are going to specifically use like P plus 3, like that's like going to be a specific charting tool that they use. And then other methods also use that depending on the situation.
Yes.
But yeah, those are very typical to actually see in a method that you're learning, in a class that you're learning. DPO, I don't think that's a method specific term.
No, it's not a method specific term, I'm pretty sure. Let's jump to let's do the TTs.
Oh my gosh, the TTs.
We have
all right. So
Ellen has some feelings about some TTs.
I have some feelings about these TTs. Okay, so what we're talking about is TTC, TTA, and TTW. So these mean respectively. So TTA meaning trying to avoid, TTC trying to conceive, and TTW trying to whatever. And I always think of the emoji when the lady's like, huh?
Yeah, the shrugged shoulders.
The shrugged shoulder emoji. That's what I think of.
Yeah.
When I think of TTW. Okay, so here's my thoughts about these TTs. First off, when I read TTA the first time, I without a definition behind it, I read it as trying to achieve. And I was so confused by the questions that these people were asking and the things that they were doing. Like, they're like, oh yeah, we're TTA and So we had sex on cycle day 6 and then, didn't have sex again until cycle day 20. Do you think there's a chance that we might be pregnant? And I'd be like, if you're trying to achieve, why did you abstain for so long?
That is hilarious.
But anyway,
so they're all confusing. See,
they're
just
all confusing,
which is why you need clarification.
But anyway, yeah. So trying to avoid and trying to conceive is what those actually stand for, not trying to achieve.
Yes,
but I think it would make so much more sense if we didn't use an A word, because achieve and avoid.
Yeah.
I feel like
what should we use? Let's petition to change it. What should it be? TT?
I think it should be TTNC and TTC. Trying to not conceive and trying to conceive.
Yeah, I can buy that. I mean, it's one extra letter that you have to type on the keyboard, which could be a lot, but
especially when someone puts long post at the beginning. Okay. LP. Oh man. Okay, so
that's true. Yeah. Oh my gosh. All right.
CM and CF.
Yes, we've got cervical mucus and cervical fluid.
Yeah, so
CM
they mean the same thing. I think sometimes people use fluid because mucus can kind of I don't know, its connotation is a little negative or gross or whatever, and so people try to use cervical fluid to kind of not gross it out or something. I don't know. I just say use mucus, but I think sometimes
like that.
Sometimes people have used cervical fluid in more public spaces. Like I actually interviewed someone for this podcast who had talked about they were doing an interview on like live television, and the host would not allow them to use the term cervical mucus, because it just like wasn't appropriate for live television or something. And so they use the term cervical fluid. So I think that's part of the reason why there's the two, but anyway, they mean the exact same thing. Yeah. It's mucus. Anyway.
Yeah. It's the same thing. It's all, we
went through like all of the hormones and we skipped HCG.
We did skip HCG. Yeah.
HCG is human chorionic gonadotrophin. If you haven't actually ever heard it said out loud.
Say that one 5 times fast.
Right? Yeah, say that 5 times.
Yeah.
HCG is what a pregnancy test is going to be looking for. So HCG is what if people are saying HCG, they're talking about a pregnancy test or getting pregnant or something along those lines. OPK. This is an ovulation predictor kit, which I've always been kind of thrown off by OPK. Because like it's just a test strip. Like, why do we call it a kit? But anyway. An OPK.
I always wondered that same thing. Why do we call it a kit?
Yeah. But I guess maybe like before we had very simple test strips, like maybe there was like some kind of a full kit to like test for the luteinizing hormone. What an OPK is testing for is a luteinizing hormone. So it's the same thing as somebody saying I took an LH test. An OPK is the same thing, right? Yeah. Okay. I'm like, what if I'm just spouting off what I think and it's not actually correct. No. An OPK.
What it might be.
Yeah. I'm just whatever.
It took me I only like really figured that one out not that long ago.
Oh, that they were the same thing.
I always see OPK, but I never learned a method, I think, where that was like a focus on it, So it was kind of like, I'd be like, OPK, what is this OPK? I mean, I'd say honestly, like maybe a year ago, I learned what OPK was. I was like, as someone who's been practicing NFP for like 10 years almost, it's like, wow, that was a long time.
Yeah.
But
you know what? See, all of us, we're all learning. We're all learning all the time.
We're all learning.
Yeah, I mean, some of these I learned this morning. So not
Especially
the ones that we've just gone through, but like the ones at the end.
They're like, pretty good.
That's a new one.
There's some good ones.
But yeah, anyway, an OPK is the same as an LH test. Means the same thing. We have no idea why it's called a kit. We'll just move on. PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome. That's what PCOS stands for. This isn't particularly this isn't like an NFP term, but it's one that comes up a lot in the groups. And if you see endo, that means endometriosis. Those are, these are two conditions that require medical intervention. Well, actually, depending on the severity, I think sometimes they don't require medical intervention. But anyway, these are some things to talk to a doctor about. Don't talk to us about it.
And should I mean require monitoring regardless if you think it's not intervention.
PP, postpartum. That glorious stage of life. People are talking about PP, they are talking about the time before ROF, which is return of fertility. So usually when people are talking about postpartum, they are talking about the cycle 0, which that's another one we can define. It wasn't even on our list. I just realized. That's essentially, that's the time before cycling returns, cycle 0. So most of the time I would say when people are talking about postpartum, they're talking about either cycle 0, where they're talking about maybe the first 3 to 6 cycles, postpartum, when things are still kind of leveling out. And again, different methods define the postpartum period in different ways. And that's just how their protocols work. So it can be kind of confusing if someone's asking about postpartum protocols, because different methods are going to have different protocols for postpartum, and different definitions of what postpartum means. For example, like some methods, as soon as cycling returns, they're out of the postpartum phase. Other methods, once cycling returns, there's 3 cycles until they're out of the postpartum phase, or there's 6 cycles, or there's a year of cycles before they're out of the postpartum phase. The different methods have different definitions, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's just how their protocols and their research has been done. But yeah, there was my little soapbox about postpartum.
There was. Lots of these have little tiny soapboxes.
Yeah, they do. Okay. STM, MM, OM, FEM, CRM. There's a lot of M's.
There are a lot of M's. Yeah.
Because the M stands for method. So these are the different methods. STM is symptothermal method. MM is Marquette method. BBC. BCC. Boston Crosscheck.
BCC is Boston Crosscheck. Yeah.
BBC is that's a television.
Not BBC. That's British Broadcasting Company.
Sorry. Boston Crosscheck. BCC. OM, ovulation method. BOM, Billings ovulation method.
CRM is Creighton model.
CRM is Creighton model. And CRM is capital C, lowercase r, M. The reason that Creighton model is CRM is because CM is cervical mucus. So that's why there's a lowercase r in for Creighton.
That's true.
What does FEM stand for again?
FEM is fertility education and medical management.
Handy. And it's kind of funny because like FEM is probably the only one on here that just like goes by its abbreviated, like because when you talk about methods, you're like,
it's like known as FEM.
Creighton, FEM, nobody really like says what FEM is.
Yeah.
No,
you're exactly right.
The last one we have on this list, and don't worry, we have another list. The last one we have on this list is FP or LP. And that's like follicular
Yep.
phase,
Follicular,
luteal phase.
luteal phase. Yeah.
So that's going to be,
All that.
that's your last
All that
phase.
jazz.
Yeah, that's what those stand
So
for.
follicular phase.
Oh yeah,
phase
is your first
being
phase.
from, yeah,
Not your first
Yeah.
phase. Well,
yeah, first phase. So from the
Yeah.
first day of your period through to, yeah, it would be through to, really, I guess, because you're splitting it into two. I'm like,
I know,
back to
it's
my
not-
timeline now. It's
not
it's
like
actually
the technical
so it's
phases
first day of your it's first day of your period on through to your peak day is
Yeah.
actually follicular because it refers to the development of the follicle within the ovary.
right.
And then the day after peak day through to the end is considered your luteal phase.
perfect.
So your ovulatory phase is technically within your follicular phase.
right.
And then everything post ovulation is luteal. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what those mean.
That's what those mean. Yeah. Should we go? Should we start with our second really fun list?
Yes, I'm so excited for this. Okay, I'm gonna skip around on this list, Kathleen, so don't be thrown off.
Yeah, do it. And
right, so-
phrases. There's acronyms and phrases.
Yeah, we
on
have
this
some
list.
phrases on here too, which are really commonly used. So let's start with DH or DP.
hate
These
them.
stand for dear husband or darling partner.
It's the worst.
These are just
Like
These
I
are-
would never go on a group and refer to my husband as my DH because I just think it sounds kind of ridiculous. I would
think it
just say my
it sounds
husband.
kind of like I don't know, like talk downish to your
It
spouse.
does. Yeah. It's like sort of patronizing. And I don't know. It's always bothered me because maybe it's just because like, I don't know, we're not like a couple that like, you know, is like, hey babe, like we don't call each other like babe or
Same.
dear or like, you know what I mean? It's like, we have like nicknames for each other that are goofy nicknames. Right. So it's like, my husband calls me Skloob. That's like literally my nickname. It's like not cutesy. It's just like,
Yeah, don't
here's a
worry.
story.
I
You know what
got
I mean? Like-
mine's Fork. So like don't even
yeah, exactly.
That
And I
one
think
that one came from college.
that's the same thing.
Not
Yes.
even sure.
And I think it's the same. It's just, that's why it's always bothered me. It's like the cutesy names, like the, honey bunch, sugar pie, whatever it is. And that's just what it sounds like to me.
Just
My
type out the
darling
word husband. Just type out
No.
if husband is too long, type out spouse. Like
Yeah. Right.
yeah.
I don't know. That one's, I hate that one. Keep going.
All right. This is one that we learned today.
Go ahead.
We're not even sure if it's like all that well known, but we just wanted to share it because it's hilarious.
Yeah.
POAS.
Which stands for pee on a stick. And I just don't know why we can't say took a pregnancy test. You could even put took a PG test if you want to. But like, why do we need the visual of peeing on a stick? We all know how pregnancy test works. So I just feel like it kind of doesn't need to be said even via an acronym. I don't know. I read that and my brow furrowed.
Yeah.
What? I was like, is that for real? Are we using that one?
Yeah. So that one's weird.
If you ever see POAS, just bypass the post.
Just skip it. Okay. So here's a phrase that we use that bugs me so much. Broke the rules. So what someone is referring to when they're saying this statement is the method that I use has specific rules set up to avoid pregnancy, and I broke the rules. As in, here's another one that people say, I used an unsafe day.
Mm-hmm.
We are not being, and I am calling you out right now. Okay. You feel free to at me on this one.
At me.
We are not being a pro-life community if we are calling the potential for conceiving unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
We are not a pro-life community if we put the idea that we're breaking the rules, we are doing something wrong if we are opening up the possibility to conceive. So those two phrases are extremely demoralizing to our pro-life attitudes that we should have, our open to life attitudes that we should have. I understand that we call them rules because that seems to be the, least inadequate phrase to call what they are. They're rules, but they are rules for avoiding pregnancy. If you do something else, you're not breaking any rules. There are no rules as to when you can and cannot have sex with your spouse, except that your act of marital intercourse should be fully loving. And so if one or both of you isn't really feeling it and you force it on the other, that's not a loving act. Like that would be, and so there's no rules on when you can and cannot have sex.
Yeah.
So you are not breaking the rule if you have sex on CD8. You're not breaking any rules.
Now, I think this might be a more appropriate phrase used within a fertility awareness like community, where you don't have that pro-life and Catholic connotation that NFP has, right? But NFP is, there's a huge discernment piece to it, right? Like it is, there are quote unquote rules for every method, but more so than being something that follows rules, right? Or if all we're doing is following the rules, then it is Catholic birth control, right? Like we're using it to avoid and nothing else. But the beautiful part of inserting discernment into that is that we can do whatever we want and nothing is wrong. It's never wrong. And that there could be days where, maybe you don't ideally want to get pregnant right now, but you recognize that your marriage needs it more than you need to not get pregnant.
Right.
Right. Like your marriage needs that intimacy. And so, then you quote unquote break the rules. No, you don't. You serve your marriage. That's what you do.
That was beautiful.
So,
that was beautiful.
Yeah.
You are serving your marriage.
Exactly.
You're not breaking the rules.
Right.
Like, so, okay. All right, everybody listening, if you're in these NFP groups, if you have sex on a day that is, quote, against the rules for avoiding pregnancy, don't say you broke the rules.
Don't
just say what happened. Hey, you know what? We decided to have sex on cycle day 11. We knew what we were doing. It was important to our marriage that we had sex on cycle day 11. Like, okay, first, also, here's another phrase. Oh, we accidentally had sex. I'm sorry. No, you didn't.
That doesn't happen.
You did not accidentally have sex.
That's so funny.
Now, I can on what they're saying, what somebody's saying when they say we accidentally had sex is, you know what? We were trying to be physically intimate with each other and we went farther than expected and we had sex.
Actually, they don't say we had sex. They say DTD.
Oh,
which we can get to next. Finish your thought and then we'll go to DTD.
I think I was basically done with my thought. It's just that what people are saying when they accidentally had sex is, we didn't anticipate having sex when we started, kissing each other or hugging each other or like whatever. And then that's what it led to. But again, there is so much discernment in that situation that like, and sure, it's subconscious discernment, but it's like, that's what your marriage needed. That's what you and your spouse needed. You guys needed to be intimate with each other. And that is okay. There is no breaking of the rules here. Anyway.
Yeah.
DTD.
That's exactly right.
Oh my
DTD.
gosh. This is this is the one that I hate probably the most. This and the next one we're going to talk about. Which is in the same stroke. But DTD, Kathleen just said it. Did the deed or doing the deed, did the deed, whatever. Guys, sex is the same letters as DTD. The same number of letters. Okay. You're not saving.
Same number of letters. Yeah.
You're not saving any time. Okay. But also, I'm looking at my keyboard right now. SEX are closer together than D and T are. So it's probably faster to type out.
Oh man. That's so funny, but you're so right.
That wasn't my point though.
But I think it also, I think it also just sort of contributes to that idea that like sex is like a dirty word. You know what I mean? Like we can't say it. We can't talk about it.
DTD can also, the deed can be like, it can also mean did the dirty. And like, that is not serving the better understanding of the beauty of marital intimacy. There is nothing dirty about sex. There is actually only glory. Like free, total, faithful marital love is glory, is the glory of heaven here on earth. Mm-hmm. There is something liturgical about having sex with your husband. It's the mass of marriage, right? So like where priesthood has the mass, like marriage has sex.
Yeah.
The wedding bed is the altar of a marriage, right? Mm. There is only beauty behind sex. So let's stop demoralizing sex.
Yeah.
Like it is beautiful. It is important. It is so good. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not breaking the rules when you have sex with your husband. You're doing what God wants you to do.
That's exactly right. No, I mean, that is really beautiful. And yeah, I mean, just call it what it is. Like I hate the having to cover up. I mean, it's like along the same, well, I'm not going to tangent. Let's go to the next one.
All right. The next one we have is PIV. All right. So PIV, stop using this one. Everyone, please. Okay. PIV means penis and vagina. Friends, you are Catholic. There is no other option. I think I'm done.
That's it. Period. End of story.
Okay. Penis and vagina is how sex works. There is no other option for sex.
Yeah.
You also shouldn't be doing anything other than penis and vagina. Like, and I'm not talking about
in terms
foreplay.
of a climax.
Yeah, in terms of climax. I'm not talking about foreplay. Like foreplay, basically everything's on the table for foreplay as long as it's loving and serving the purpose of sex. You should not be on an infertile day, like dry humping naked. I'm sorry. You shouldn't be doing things like that. First off, you shouldn't be doing things like that because genital contact can result in pregnancy.
Even at the level of the vulva.
Yep.
Very true.
So there's like one side, but also that is not morally, it's not morally right.
Yeah.
We'll probably have an episode where we kind of dive into, kind of the licit and illicit acts. And that's just sort of like one example. Yeah. So I don't want to get into it too much, but PIV is your only option.
It's your only option.
Okay. For climax, like you,
right.
Whatever is on the table for foreplay, essentially. But yeah, so please stop saying that. You had sex. That's what you had.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And also like sometimes people use the phrase like penetrative sex.
Versus what?
That is sex.
Oh man.
Nothing else is sex. Like sex is penetrative.
Now these are, I think, again, terms probably
outside of Catholic circles.
Right.
Yeah.
Outside of Catholic circles, a lot of these are probably a lot more, they
need
some more clarification.
if you are a Catholic, or Christian or whatever, you know, if you are of a open to life, pro-life mentality in one of these secular groups, you can still stop using these phrases that are demoralizing sex.
Yeah.
There's nothing on these pages. Well, I don't know. Maybe there's some really puritanical pages that are like really manichaeist and like say that you can't type out the word sex, and in which case get off of that forum. But like there's nothing on these pages that says you can't actually just use the terms. Use the word penis, use the word vagina, use the word sex.
Yeah,
that's what they actually are. Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna stop yelling into my microphone now. Oh, we have another one. I might still yell. We have one more.
I'll go into this one. There's the BFP and the BFN.
Oh wait, we should do BD first.
Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's right. While we're talking about the
while we're talking about this.
Oh my gosh.
BD stands for baby dance.
Baby dance.
I
hate it. I hate that.
Friends.
I hate the baby dance.
I don't even think I need to say anything. Like I think I've already said it. But
it's like
what BD, what they mean is that they like had sex with the great intention of conceiving.
Right.
Like, we had sex as close to peak day as possible, you know. Yes. Like that's what the baby dance means, the BD. But the guys
yeah, like I can't even like hear it said without laughing.
I know, right?
It's like POAS with like the unnecessary visual. It just gives more of a visual.
It does.
A baby dance.
It's an interesting visual.
It's you know what honestly it makes me think of is like if you watch Planet Earth, like the birds with their like mating dances, right? That's like what I think of when I hear BD.
Yeah. Baby dance. And okay, we are not saying anything against dancing if that is part of your foreplay, if that is part of your climax. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And that's beautiful. In fact, dancing is biblical, friends.
But the baby dance referring to the sexual act, it makes me cringe.
Just call it sex. Okay. Yeah. So now you wanted to go on to BFP.
Yeah.
BFN.
The BFP and the BFN, right? When we take a pregnancy test, it stands for big fat positive and big fat negative. And I don't know, maybe like, I like all the scientific terms that we sort of, put out, like the logical terms that we put out in the very beginning. When you get into things like BF for big fat, it just loses loses something to me.
It loses credibility.
It's like, why? Exactly. The credibility. It's just like, why can't, if you really don't want to type out the word positive, I think you could put POS and people would understand. If you wanted to put
or a plus sign
for negative, people would understand.
Just put
a plus sign or a minus sign.
And a minus sign. That's a pretty easy one.
I just hate the big fat piece of that. Like, why do we need?
It's just kind of.
And now I understand that sometimes with pregnancy tests, right? Like, it's like, is that positive? Is that negative? Mm-hmm. Like, it's like you're not 100%, right? Because it's maybe at the very beginning and whatever. It's not totally clear. Whereas there are days where it's absolutely clear. And so maybe the BFP and the BFN are referring to those absolutely clear, it cannot be mistaken readings. But I just feel like there's a better way to say that, or we could just use positive and negative. I don't know. I'm crazy.
It was just like a
big
personal...
fat piece of that. Just that's always been a personal.
And PT means pregnancy test. In those definitions as well. So like just put plus sign PT or like negative sign PT. Like
right. Like that would make sense to me. Just as many letters as BFP and BFN. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway. I'm seeing one more on here that we skipped, and it's really funny that we're going to end on this one. AF.
Maybe what you're thinking, maybe not what you're thinking.
Yeah. So AF in this world whatever. It stands for ant flow, which, okay, I've been saying it this whole time. Like, just say what it is. It's menstruation, friends. Say your period. If you want, like, just do a period dot if you like don't want to type it out. Like, it's it's just menses. It's menstruation.
There was another one on the list that I had not heard of that was not Marquette method, but monthly maintenance. Did you see that?
I did see that one on the list. I didn't put it on our list because I was like, I've never heard that before.
I've never seen it written out anywhere. So I was like, wait, is that a thing? Monthly maintenance, also a reference to your period or menstruation.
Which don't use that one because it's confusing with Marquette method. So just skip that one. But anyway, ant flow. So one problem I have is that like we're anthropomorphizing menstruation, which is weird. It's very strange to do.
It is really weird. Yeah.
I had an app in high school that it was like a predictive app, and you put in like your period and it would give you notifications. And the two notifications that it would give you are ant flow is coming to visit, which blah. Okay. And the other one was the flowers are blooming.
The flowers are blooming. Are you serious?
Yeah, that was like, so you're ovulating.
Oh my god.
Yeah. So I just like, I really don't like these, like, what would you call this a euphemism? Like,
I guess so. But you know what? I was going to say this before and it was getting a little tangent-y, but I keep coming back to it. That it's like the same thing with not having cutesy little names for private parts and things for your kids, right? Like, I think that, just like not being afraid to call things what they are.
Yeah.
And I get like, we come up with acronyms to like shorten, our typing, which, like, let's be honest, typing's already faster than writing. So why do we need to shorten it anymore? But regardless, I think just, coming up with all the little euphemisms and, all these things is just, it's what you said before. Like, it's a lot of it is just kind of, it's like masking the dignity of sex, right? Like, it's being afraid to say what things are. And again, as if it's dirty or if it's bad. And I think that, some of these, not all of them, obviously we went through a massive list of good ones, which again are more logical and scientific and whatnot, but all like the silly little ones that we get into, it's just like, it sends the wrong message. I think that, like, why can't we just talk about what this is and what it was intended to be and the dignity of it as given by God, right? Like, I don't know. It gets silly. And I'm very passionate about with my kids. I mean, my 2-year-old, his favorite word right now is penis. And that's problematic. I understand what these things are. About right. He knows. It's true. Yeah. I don't know. But anyway, it's a little tangent, but I just think that we can do better with these acronyms. We can just talk.
I think that's what I was trying to get to, of like, some of these acronyms come from more secular worlds where like there isn't the emphasis on being open to life and there isn't the understanding of the dignity of sex and the dignity of the human being.
Right.
But just because these other secular forums often use these phrases doesn't mean we have to. Like, the reason that these exist is so that you don't hijack. Don't let them hijack it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Don't let them hijack the goodness that we have.
Yeah. Anyway, my other thing on ant flow,
that's how I feel
on AF, is that when I read it the first time, I thought of like, like that she's like dumb AF, right? And I was like very confused.
Exactly. Yeah. AF stands for something else.
Yeah, AF means something else. Not going to say it on this podcast because this is not an explicit podcast.
No.
But that's also problematic. Like, if the phrases are confusing, if they look like something else, like that can be absolutely problematic. So anyway, all that to say, take the extra 5 seconds, just type it out, and don't use euphemisms. Don't demoralize sex. Sex is beautiful. think that was a good summary.
That's it. That's it. Yeah. I love it.
Oh man, thank you so much for listening. If you are not following us on Instagram, be sure to reach out to us. If you listen to some of these and you're kind of like, well, I think that sex is dirty. I think, and you're struggling with some of the things that we talked about, or you're struggling with the idea that PIV is your only option. These are the kind of things that I want to talk to you about in coaching. Set up a coaching call with me. Set up a 10-minute discovery, a free 10-minute discovery call with me. I would love to chat with you about these things. Follow us on Instagram at Charting Toward Intimacy. Email is in the show notes. Reach out to us if you have questions. Until next time.